Connections team this year. I realized that we're sort of smack dab in the middle of the program, so I was thinking that it would be a good opportunity if you guys wanted to stand up with me and stretch while I say how wonderful my team is. So, I just want to say that it was truly a pleasure working with this group of students. It really makes me hopeful that they're going to go on and do some really great things in the future. They're bright and talented young folks who have tons of artistic creativity, tons of enthusiasm, and it was really a pleasure working with them. And I think you'll find out soon enough that the project this year with Canopy Connections was quite successful. But I think one thing that truly exemplifies how great these students were is that a couple of the students were offered internship positions to continue working with one of the community partners, PTCI, throughout the summer. So I just want to say thank you guys for being such an awesome group. I really enjoyed working with you. Without further ado, here's Canopy Connections.
Thanks, Marissa, for the intro. I'm Emma. I'm with Canopy Connections, and I'd like to start off by introducing the rest of my team that I've been working with for the last 2 terms since January. So first off, Sarah, Carrie, Ellen, Ritz, Jake, myself, Emma, Kate, and Sean. It's been really a great experience working with these groups, but there's also other partners who we work with on this. So, just a brief overview. I'm going to show you kind of the structure of how our program works, our partnership. Then Jake will lead us through the experience of being out in the field and working with students out at H.J. Andrews. Sean will work us through the curriculum and the implementation process, and then at the end I will follow up with the results and the success of our program. So first off, the partnership that Canopy Connections has is really special. We cannot do this project on our own. The H.J. Andrews Experimental Forest provides us a wonderful magical forest to teach students in. The Pacific Tree Climbing Institute provides the guiding and expertise of taking students 90 feet into an old Douglas fir tree to learn about ecology and how being in the woods influences how we learn. And then last but not least, the environmental leadership program, Canopy Connections team, all of us, worked to develop a curriculum that has 7 lesson plans in it and implemented it during the spring term in the month of May. You'll be hearing more about that from Sean. So now without further ado, Jake is going to walk you through the experience of being out in the woods.
Great, so this is kind of a guided meditation / journey that I'm going to take you on. So I would like everyone to put your mind states in that of a middle school student. It is the morning and you wake up and you do what you do every morning. Mom, I'm sick. I don't want to go to school. She says, are you serious? It's time for Canopy Connections. And you get right out of bed. Because today is going to be a good day. So you get on the bus, you're traveling up, and you arrive at the wonderful H.J. Andrews Experimental Forest. This is an extremely rare place to be in the world. It's absolutely amazing. The people there are outstanding. The research that's going on is unparalleled. This is absolutely a great place to learn. You get up, you get to meet your great facilitators as we've all been introduced, and you're maybe a little bit nervous, maybe a little shy, but hey, you're in the woods, not in the classroom. Life's good, right? So then we start on our quest, and you'll learn about a quest later. But so what's the first thing? The first thing, you get to climb this huge tree? What, I get to hang out in a tree for a class? Wow, wow. We start putting our gear on. You're a little nervous. What's all this stuff for? I don't know how to use it. Oh my God, this tree's 100 feet tall. I'm out of it. How do I do this? Well, PCTI is gonna help you out climbing up this tree. You got your ascender gear and you got your descender gear, and you start crawling up that tree like a little inchworm. It's awesome. Things are changing, the things around you are starting to change, the sounds are different, the air is more crisp, the lichen is changing, the moss is changing, you're going up and there's little clues. Oh my God, I get to write a poem while I'm hanging out in a tree. This is awesome. I forgot, what's up? So you're starting to climb up and you get to the top and there's a treasure up there. But what is the treasure? You get to take a picture. And if you're lucky enough, you get to take a picture of me. You're looking around, things are amazing. You're at the top of a tree, literally 100 feet in the air. You look out and the clouds are being held up by the other trees like little pillows in the sky. You are literally above the birds and they are flying underneath you. It is absolutely an amazing experience. So then, too bad, it's time to descend. But honestly, it's a pretty fun time. You are flying down this rope. It is amazing. You're hauling, it's great. You get to the bottom and the day is not over. What do we get to do? We get to go on 3 more amazing quests. You are literally, your class is poking around in the forest, asking questions, exploring the wilderness, and having an awesome time. We go through quest by quest, clue by clue, helping out, working with a team to come together to find treasures, and who does not like treasure? I love treasure. So, why do we do all of this? There's something that's seldom discussed in the educational community, and that's nature deficit disorder, which is brought up by Richard Louv in his book, Last Child in the Woods. So what is nature deficit disorder? This is a concept that is arise between a lack of interactions with students and their natural environment. So let's put that in reference. So if you're in a synthetic environment, you are literally constrained to a few variables. When you're in the natural environment, there are very many different things that you can interact with and exchange with and think about. We call these ends, and you can fit a lot of different ends together. So again, when you're in the constrained environment or synthetic environment, you have very few ends that you can play around with. Me as a young boy, as you can see, I'm very energetic. I need a lot of things to play with. When I'm in the synthetic world, there's not as many things, and this can lead to behavioral issues and attention deficit disorder, stuff like that. So what we try to do is put our students into the natural world where there are a lot of things to play with, there's lots of different things to observe, and hopefully reconnect students and get them more oriented on the path. Sean is now going to explain more of the details of our plan.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, so our theme this year for Canopy Connections was people and plants. So we focused on the cultural, aesthetic, and spiritual value of plants and the relationship between them. So we focused mostly on how people can use plants and how we therefore should appreciate them, but we also looked at what we as people can do in exchange for that relationship that we have with the plants. So as Jake touched on, we implemented quests throughout our day. Quests are basically scavenger hunts. We had 4 different quests throughout 4 different sections of H.J. Andrews. As you can see here, arts and culture, the tree climb, forest forages and habitats were our 4 quests, and I'll go through them more in a moment. At each quest, we'd have about 75 minutes to explore. The students would find the clues embedded in the forest, and they would end up at a different treasure each time. And then they would get a treasure, and they'd also get a stamp, which you can see over on our table later. So some of the things we focused on this year in our quest were inquiry. That means, it was already touched on a bit earlier today, but making sure that we didn't just lecture them, we learned, and didn't just teach them what to learn, but how to learn, getting to ask questions and making sure that curiosity building was with them the whole time. We also made sure in our curriculum development focus on multiple learning intelligences. So everyone in this room no doubt learns a little bit differently to the person next to you. You might learn best by writing, talking, so that you might be an extrovert, or you might be more introvert and want to reflect on things more. Maybe you like to read, or like Jake was saying, get out there and use your energy, have physical exercise. So we tried to incorporate all those different things into our lesson plans. So what we before our lesson plans, we visited the different classes. So we had 8 field trips working with 6 different schools. We visited 7 of the classrooms before the lesson plan. There we had a chance to see what they already knew and adapt their prior knowledge to the lesson plan. We'd introduce them to plant ID using 3 native plants, and we'd also get them to orient themselves where they are in relation to where H.J. Andrews is. Finally, we get them to make journal covers, which then we would put on to the journal that they would use on the day to kind of feel that they made it in the classroom, now it's here in the forest, to really give them that connection early on. So let me introduce you to our 4 amazing quests. I'll just a brief overview of the day. Each of us would work with about 6 students and a chaperone, going through each quest in turn throughout the day. So the first quest was forest forages, and the goal of forest forages was to introduce students to non-timber forest products and how we can use non-timber forest products. So we'd begin by being like, what is an NTFP? And then working through that acronym until they figured it out. And then we'd further expand on that knowledge by playing a few different games. Charades, where the students would read out the name of a plant and then they would act it out. to try and get the use and the plant name together. And then as you can see here on the left, we'd play a game where we'd give them sheets with different uses of plants, the names of the plants and the plant samples, and they have to match them all together. A lot of that touched on the prior game, so it was continually building on the same knowledge to make sure that they knew that by the end. Then we'd give them a chance to collect themselves, and they'd have a chance to go out and pick different species or pick them off the floor and collect them. And then we'd also talk about the challenges that come with gathering. And then at the end, they'd each get one of these wood cookies, which they could then put their name on and have with them for the rest of the day. Thank you. The second quest was CSI, Cameras, Science and Investigation. And the theme of this quest was to explore plants and their importance to the forest and people through drawing, observation and identification. As you can see here, our first stop was at a nurse log, where we'd look at all the tiny little plants that grow on nurse logs, talk about whether nurse logs are dead or alive, and then use magnifying glasses to get a closer look at these plants. Then we'd move down to the river and we'd look at 4 different trees and compare their barks and their cones, to compare and contrast, and then we talk about the uses, because there's no point in the kids and the students knowing about the uses of the plants if they don't know how to identify them. And then at the end of the CSI quest, they'd each get a tree tag, which we'd focus on how they're used for research and the importance of the plants that they just looked at. The third quest was Cultivating Creativity, where we looked at practical and creative uses for plants and further how to identify them. As you can see here, the students did plant rubbings with Oregon grape and salal and whatever other plants were available in the area. We'd also drink Doug fir tip tea. We'd dye cloth with Western red cedar bark dye, and we'd make this art that you can see here. And then at the end of the quest, they would each get one of these little bags of tea, which they could then take home and continue their use of native plants once the field trip was over. And then finally, definitely last but not least, was the tree climb, which the students looked forward to throughout the day, or if they'd done it earlier on, definitely reflected on it. And this year we tried to focus on the non-material uses of plants with the tree. So they would climb up, and then we'd go 100 feet up and then have time to stop and silently reflect on what they can hear, what they can see, how it's different, and for them to find a new way to appreciate nature. And then I'll pass you over to Emma to see how these field trips gave us some great achievements.
So in total, we led the Canopy Connections program 8 times. We had a Thursday team and a Friday team, and taught 176 students throughout the month of May. Students achieved our learning objectives and actually exceeded them by identifying a total of 21 uses of plants that we found out at HJ Andrews. And then all the teachers were excited to come back and work with us next year, which was a great success. Along with these few outcomes here, we also produced a curriculum packet that is over at our table. You can come check it out. A report, the website, and presentations both out at HJ Andrews here on campus for the undergraduate symposium, and maybe a national conference in the fall, which I'm excited for. So I'm going to walk you through a few quotes from the field that kind of shows the impact that we're having out there. One student remarked, "Too bad we can't always learn outside. We learn way better out here." I really liked learning all the uses of plants and people. One chaperone said, "I actually learned something today, and I've been in the forest my whole life." And lastly, "I'm going to go home tonight full of knowledge." So this is some of the great feedback that we got and rewards for working with these students. I'd like to walk you through briefly a few experiences on my very first day. So I was new out in the field, really excited to teach, but also a little bit nervous to see how it would go with actual middle school students. And within the first 5 minutes of breaking off with my group of about 6 students, I found out that one of the students in my group was both mute, so I couldn't use communication that I was used to, and he had an entire leg cast on with crutches. I was like, okay, this is going to be great. Great lesson in adaptation, learning how to teach. But it totally paid off. It made the experience even more exciting for me. When we got to the tree climb at the end of the day, I wasn't sure how it was going to work out, but Rob and Jason with PTCI helped us out. We put a harness on Javier, and then I climbed up next to him to make sure that if he wanted to signal that he wanted to go down or anything. I would know. And he was grinning and loving it. It was so phenomenal to see him climb all the way up 90 feet in a Douglas fir tree and learn how to climb one-legged. So it's moments like those that really show that we're making an impact out there. One other moment from that first day, I was heading back with my group to lunch at the pavilion, and we were walking down a road, and one student remarked that we saw like 4 deer by the edge of the forest, and one student remarked that that was the first time he'd ever seen deer in person in his life. So that didn't, like, I've seen deer my whole life. I couldn't quite relate to not seeing deer, but that let me know that we're really making a difference out there. I'd like to share one poem with you from a student who wrote it in the tree during the tree climb. The view is amazing, reaching the height of each new day, like works of art from balls of clay. The wind in my hair, the sun on my face, I'd not rather be in any other place. The top of the tree, high in the air, the sun is bright, the weather fair. So I think this represents well how we're addressing nature deficit disorder and teaching students how to observe and take all their senses to learn in a different environment out there. This clearly shows that the girl who wrote this was aware of everything. And lastly, a few last acknowledgements. Katie Lynch, couldn't do it without you. Marissa Williams helped out a lot. H.J. Andrews Experimental Forest, we couldn't do it without the site. And Pacific Tree Climbing Institute, you make the tree climb possible. I'd also like to thank our donors for the special experience that they've made possible. The Great Family Fund, Outdoor Foundation, Steve Ellis, and the Robert and Catherine Miller Foundation. Please come to our table at the end and check out all our cool materials and a video. Thanks so much.